so my husband wanted to see me do this. So this is kind of a fun thing to do this. I have never done this. So one of the things, you didn't know I wanted to write a book, because I didn't tell anybody. I also didn't tell anyone I wanted to do stand-up comedy, but I made a list of things that I felt like the Lord wanted to challenge me on, and I thought, and that was on both of them. So here I am doing my first thing. So thank you, you guys are my first time ever doing this, so hopefully it's funny. Otherwise, I'm going to go, God. Okay, but doesn't it feel good to be in person?
Yes.
Oh, it feels so good. It feels so good. And I just want to first just give a great thank you to the people who organized this in this time, all the organizers. Can you guys just give them a great thank you? We're Presbyterian. That was a little bit of a Frozen Chosen type of clapping. I want us to give it up for the organizers. Come on. And so I was like elbowing, hugging, and then Dolly Myers like arm wrestled me. And but Rhonda said, she says, what did she say, Rhonda? I wrote it down. Hold on. She said, oh yeah, right now if anybody will touch me, I tell them to bring it on in. So I think we kind of feel that way. Like the introverts are even like, hi, hello. Like it took my daughter as an introvert at least. Like it took till August for her to finally say, okay, I'm ready. I miss people. Like it took a little while. But for me, I was really like, this really stinks, early on. But I have to say, staying at home at first was really fun. Who did sourdough bread? Whoever learned how to do sourdough? Yes, because there was no yeast anywhere, right? So we had a lot of fun. But it is so nice to be here together, and I'm so thankful that we're going to have time to really dig deep. So right now I'm going to be really, really shallow. We're not going to go dig deep at all. So just stick with me here, because I was thinking, we have women here that are pregnant or just had babies, seniors, just such a beautiful time. And when I was in my 20s, when we're in our 20s, do we have any 20-year-olds here? Any 20s? Yeah. When you're in 20s, it's a really exciting time. College or grad school, maybe a job, internships. Maybe you get married, maybe you don't, but you have children perhaps. But when you think of women in their 50s, you're thinking, that's really old. Okay. So stick with me. When you're in your 30s, though, it's awesome. You're comfortable in your own skin. You have a better sense of who you are. You have some friends, like your kids' friends or their parents or your friends. But those in their 50s are really still, it seems so far away, and they're really old. Now when you're in your 40s, now you're really in your prime, okay? And friends do shift as your kids get older. Sometimes friends shift. And your kids may be teenagers at this time if you have them. And but you really know who you are as a woman, right? But the 50s, that seems really far off and it seems really old. Okay, so when you hit your 50s, and I did last week, this is why I'm talking, and I will not make fun of anybody, I won't make fun of myself, okay? So, well, actually, I will make fun of somebody else later on, but they got permission. So when you're in 50s, you're just shook up. You're like, what? You're in shock. You're like, you feel like you're kind of in your 30s in your mind. Your bodies are still in your 40s. You're all nodding your head. But in your 50s, something changes, in 3 ways. The first way is things sag. Just overnight. And then number 2 is things that, let me just go back a little bit. I forgot to say something. I asked some men, I asked some husbands, what do we talk about at women's retreats? What do you think we do? And one man said, you have Bible study, worship, prayer. I was like, yes. Gossip? No, we don't gossip. And then I asked another one, Marcy Martin's husband, I'm like, what do you think we do at women's retreats? Don't you talk about menopause? And I was like, no. Are you kidding me? And then I asked my husband, what do you think we do at ladies' retreats? And he said, I think you cry. I was like, no, we don't cry. It's Pastor Clark who cries. I got permission. But getting back to so we're going to talk about the second thing that 50s menopause. So, Will, you're right. We already talked about menopause. And the third thing, we won't talk about the menopause right now. The third dreaded 2 words about being 50. Are you ready? Listen in. Chin hairs. Chin hairs. Yes. They are the ones that you just don't even know you had them. If you remember nothing else from this weekend, I'm going to teach you a tip, and you're going to remember this, and you're going to thank me, and then tell your children about me. You ready? I'm going to show you. Okay? This is what you all need. in your cup holder of your car. Do you know what these are?
I know what they are.
Okay. This is all the Western world has worn masks need to have this. Do you know why? What happens when you wear a mask? Sunlight doesn't hit those hairs. They get darker. And you get into your car because now you're traveling to places and you're looking in that mirror for the first time in 18 months or how many months we've been doing COVID. And you're like, oh my gosh, what's happened? So this is what you need in your cup holder. So yes, anyway, so that's kind of the thing I would recommend for my 50th. Now getting back to when I was 20, and this is something for the pregnant women. No one tells you these things, but I'm about to tell you. I'm going to tell you straight up what happens. Don't you? Like, not how you get pregnant. We don't need to do that. But what happens after you give birth? No one tells you about the E word, episiotomy. I won't go into all that stuff. But what I will say is that there are some surprises that happen with nursing. It's a lot. There's a lot that changes with your body. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing. The one thing that wasn't so beautiful for me is that I couldn't nurse one of my children. So I did something called pumping. And I have to tell you, the first time I heard about this, I was in my 20s, I was just married, I went to a baby shower, and they gave this woman what I thought was a milking device for a cow as a gift. And I said, oh my gosh, what's that? Like, I was like, there's not a receiving blanket? And they're like, oh, it's a pump. And then they all sat around and told their pumping stories. And I'm like 24, going 23, whatever, I don't know, I had a baby at 23, 22, going, oh my gosh. I walked out of there literally like kind of like shaking it off and going, I can't unhear that. I don't know what this is. I'm an only child. My dad raised me. I have no idea what happens with women's bodies. So I fast forward, my second child, she couldn't nurse and she had special needs, so I had to go out of state to get her special care. Well, I had a toddler in the backseat of my minivan, and I would have little Abby in her car seat turned around, and I would be by myself because my husband was a teacher, and it was super hard for teachers to get off work. It's really hard. It's so much more work. If you're a teacher, you know what I'm talking about. Lesson plans, oh my goodness. So he hardly came with me. A couple ladies in the church would come once in a while, but for the most part, it was me. And I didn't know how to do it. We lived in Laurel. I had to get to Wilmington. But when we get there, it's boom, boom, boom. Specialists running throughout the whole hospital. How am I going to pump for my baby? So I was struggling. I was like, okay, wait a minute. I have this Medela, like this looks like a briefcase pump. I got one of those milking devices. And I put that on, and I started driving. Like, what am I going to do? I have to feed the baby. So like, I push my elbows in. Oh, I'm so glad there's no men watching. I push my elbows in. I have my steering wheel, and I'm pressing with a receiving blanket over me. And I'm driving in 95, toll booths and everything.
Oh my God.
And then at one point it pops off. And I was like, what do I do? And so I had to like rip off the blanket, but I'm in a minivan so no one can see me. And so I'm here, I'm running, and all of a sudden, the tractor trailer did a good show. But my baby was fed, and that's it. So I'm so glad we're here today. Thank you for letting me come and share with you. Thank you so much for letting me have this experience with you. I hope it was fun.